the fifth best rivalry in UFC history, I took Tito Ortiz, Ken Shamrock. Because, in my opinion, this was where the WWE-style trash talk, but real fighting, was kind of birthed. After a Tito Ortiz win, you had Ken Shamrock almost jumping the cage as a spectator and getting in Tito Ortiz's face. Like, that's a WWE thing. Nothing came of it. If you remember Daniel Cormier calling out Brock Lesnar and getting shoved halfway across the cage last year when he defeated Stipe Miocic for the first time, it was like that, but for one of the first times ever, right? So Tito Ortiz, Ken Shamrock would go on to fight after, months and even years of pushing things off and fights getting canceled, but it was still one of the greatest rivalries and one of the first in the sport with two absolute legends in their own right in the UFC. Now, on to number 4, Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva. This is, I think, where I was actually hooked on MMA, on the UFC in particular. I remember being on vacation with my family. We were in, I think we were in like St. Thomas or the Bahamas. The only reason I remember that it was out of the country is because we got to go to a bar to watch the fight, and I was probably like 14, so obviously we were not in the States anywhere. So we went to a bar and watched that fight, and I just remember watching over and over the promo of Chael Sonnen just belligerently shaming Anderson Silva for being a coward, a scaredy cat, just something about culturally lying in the mud with his Brazilian friends, just digging so deep culturally and just really stabbing and cutting little wounds into the Brazilian culture as a whole. And not to mention, Anderson Silva before this was a quiet guy. He didn't talk trash. Anderson Silva never talked trash. He was one of the most respectable guys in the UFC. But he said in broken English, I don't like Chael. I want to hurt Chael. You had the first cute little naive attempts from Anderson Silva trying to trash talk, and I think that is where the beauty of this rivalry truly comes from, is because you had two such different human beings, but the outcome was just poetic with Anderson Silva defeating him twice. On to number 3. This might shock a few. Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Oh.
Absolutely love this rivalry. As I told you just a couple minutes ago, I stayed up last night until about 2 a.m. watching the Netflix film Conor McGregor Notorious, where you think, you watch the movie and it shows you that after a year or two, Conor McGregor goes from collecting welfare and food stamps in Ireland to living in possibly one of the most gorgeous mansions I have ever seen in my life. Absolutely unreal of a come up. This kid is the definition of making it in America. Absolutely incredible. And then you have Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is way more quiet, right? Way less about the money, way less about possessions, more just kind of scary. Now, this rivalry started with just the fact that they knew they were going to fight each other, and I think Conor McGregor knew that, Khabib knew that. But once they both became more and more successful and they knew that fight was coming, that's when the tension started to build up. And the pre-fight hype for this fight, Conor McGregor showing up drunk to a press conference and offering Khabib whiskey, was just the absolute pinnacle of this rivalry. Sadly, it did not end. It ended the way that everyone wanted to. Khabib jumped the cage and there was a brawl afterwards. What else can you ask for from a rivalry? However, sadly, I don't think that there will be a Khabib McGregor 2. I'm praying that there is. Somehow Conor gets back into the swing of things and that happens for him. But for right now, that's one of the best past rivalries in the sport. On to number 2, Uriah Faber and Dominic Cruz.
Love it.
As I am Brick Harris and the WEC is home to me, I could not go without mentioning the WEC and this incredible, incredible rivalry. Uriah Faber is a legend with a decent amount of losses. I believe he has like 12 or 13 losses under his belt. He's been here forever. Dominic Cruz, however, I believe has 1 or 2. I believe he has 2, yep. One against Cody Garbrandt and then one against Uriah Faber. Now, these two went at it in the WEC when MMA was getting cool, right? Especially for the small weight classes, for flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, and these guys were studs. I think Uriah Faber is like 5'6". This dude was my hero growing up because I knew how short he was, I knew how strong he was, and how good of a fighter he was. And I grew up watching Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber go at it, whether it was trash talk, whether it was pre-fight hype, or whether it was actually them fighting. I used to watch them on Versus
in my family home evening on Monday nights. It was the best time, and this is one of the rivalries that has still just been so marking to me. Now, this shouldn't come as any surprise. What I have as my number one. It should be.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier.
Absolutely.
Woo! Brick loves Jon Jones.
Absolutely. You're thinking I'm going to put WEC and Jon Jones anywhere but the top 5 rivalries of our time? Come on. No, but when you think about it, right, Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier has accrued some of the most publicity, some of the most shocking interviews, press conferences, hype videos, and the fights in general. I think those 2 fights were 2 of the best light heavyweight fights I've ever seen. These are 2 of the best fights in light heavyweight history. And the rivalry between the 2 stretches well beyond MMA. These guys don't like each other.